Hey, this is Ryan Christ and Jeff Miller. So Jeff is our exterior product manager or product manager for exterior shades. So I've only had 1.5 cups of coffee this morning. It is 10 a.m. here, so we're still working on our fifth, right?
Yeah, you're
So
worked up.
it is all good. Hey, we have a great presentation for you this morning. We want to have kind of a great discussion on everything that you want to know when selling exterior shades. Um, we've been doing the exterior shades for quite a while, and the biggest thing is that this is entirely different than selling an exterior product. And so, from expectation as setting to, there's a lot of, say, newcomer or new manufacturers out on the market that are social media heavy, and a lot of our homeowners and consumers are seeing these videos, and we're trying to figure out, how do we, combat, their objections to our product and all of those things. So we've got a lot of points to discuss there. So what we're going to cover, guys, so everything from, really a quick intro to TEXTON's exterior shades, where and how this fits into the market, because, this is not a DIY product, right? So how, how does this premium offering fit into the market, and what does the ideal customer look like? We've got a little bit of a polling, being a myth versus fact. So hopefully doing some myth busting with Jeff here. Also, when we look at the business of exterior shades, it's drastically different. Like I mentioned, you're selling a true architectural and structural product, right? Um, and so it's a different process, different installation method, different really sales
Yeah.
process to get there. So we have a lot of training and resources to go over and question and answer. So we are getting started. So Jeff Miller, you've been with us since 2018. You've installed over, man, 1,000 exterior shades, not just
I feel
in
it.
Dallas Fort Worth. Yeah, you're looking good and strong, right? But what makes us super unique, and I'll get to kind of Jeff's background here in a minute. Jeff, being the product manager for exterior shades, he's actually built these shades in our factory and actually installed them, right? And so you know, the the end result to you all and to the consumers is really this is a product that has been tested,
For
by
decades.
Jeff in the field. When you call and get support, you're not just talking to someone who's reading from a script. You're talking to someone who actually understands exactly what you're going through
That's
and
right.
what you're hearing, what you're looking at. It's a different feel, and so we've designed this product to be at the ease or for the ease of installation, for the ease of servicing your customers. Um, so Jeff, kind of give us a, your background, why you love exterior shades so much, and yeah.
Yeah. What's there not to like, right? So you're in people's usually finished backyards. They've got
Right.
pools. They've turned, the outdoor living sector has grown exponentially, throughout COVID. We learned a lot through COVID. I think a lot of people, because everybody was kind of stuck in their homes, everybody was looking to furnish their homes with window coverings and exterior shades. And of course, exterior shades are a big billboard for your company too. A lot of people forget that. Those shades are hanging out there on people's patios 365 days a year,
Yeah.
and people appreciate when they're done well. That is a great representation of your company. So that snowballed a considerable amount of
Yeah.
sales because, of course, your neighbors, if your neighbors have a nice product, you want that nice product. And, subconsciously, everybody's kind of trying to compete with the Johnson.
Right.
So, there's COVID was wonderful for the window covering industry as a whole,
It was,
and we
yeah.
learned a lot. I didn't know I have an extensive sales background. I was an account executive for the banks. I've been, I was assistant store director of a Sam's Club. You know, there's a lot of sales that go on with
Those are
that.
boring sales though,
Those are
right?
boring sales, yeah,
Yeah, I
retail
mean,
sales.
yeah,
Manager of a Radio Shack during the big explosion in the mid 2000s with the family plans. Everybody's pushing. Of course, everybody's got a family plan now, but you know, so I've gone through a lot of sales training with some big corporate companies, and of course, I was a chef at Disney. You know, where I met my wife. So there's a lot
yeah,
of training that goes into being an employee at Disney. So, you know, hospitality. And so, you know, I didn't know a lot coming into it as a product manager, but I did know that if I was going to know it, I had to do every install, I had to do every service call. A lot of our dealers at the time were still kind of timid to sell exterior shades because they're like, well, I know what that entails. There's a lot to that. It's more construction than window coverings. And they're right. So in order to be able to create this program from sales to consultation to install, I had to know every nuance of the product and
right.
make changes as we went. So now we have like a phenomenal product.
We do, yeah,
It's designed for install teams, which you know your install teams at the end of the day they're installing this product and you can push it on them. But if there's something better out there that's going to make their life easier, it's gonna, you know, maybe you can do 2 installs in a day with our product as opposed to a competitor's. Um, that's really key because they're the ones that are installing every day, dealing with the
yeah,
homeowners. If there's problems with the product, they're the ones having to talk to the homeowners about it. So how do we, you know, make a notoriously difficult product a smooth and easy product to install for a homeowner. And so
yeah.
that's what we've done. There's so much more that goes into the product outside of just the product itself in terms of product knowledge and overcoming obstacles, the entire install training. And that's where we really thrive. We're a little different than most manufacturers in that we do turnkey
Right.
install for our local dealers.
Gives us that knowledge,
And it
right?
gives us the knowledge and really allows us to like what are new things coming into the market that we need to bring on for our dealers. How do we deal with homeowners expectations? And so we're able to do all of that as a package, which is really sets us apart in the industry.
I guess that's the TEXTON special, right?
Correct.
So, I did forget one thing. So, just a couple housekeeping items. So, I am monitoring the chat window and also my phone via text. So, if you have a question, use the chat box in Zoom for that. So, we'll I want to make this more of a discussion because this content is for you all, right? And if you're texting me via my phone, I'm monitoring that too. So let's kind of jump into really, I guess the growth trends. Kind of why we're seeing this explosion of exterior shades, right? It's so COVID. Yes, it was a detriment to the world, but as Jeff mentioned, for our industry, it was substantial, and it made people really think as they're kind of captivated into their home. Made them think, how can I make my home more livable, right? And so they began, not only looking at ways to dress up their interiors, but then the outside became the focus, right? And so as we've seen this growth, um,
Hello, Metro Screenworks.
as I mentioned, guys, if you can please put your devices on mute, that would be highly appreciated. We are recording
Yes.
this webinar. So, from 2022 to 2023, there's been a 33% growth in the amount that homeowners have invested in outdoor living, and that's substantial. Usually, you see maybe 5, 8% growth, but 33% growth, after that. And so when you look at that growth, right, during that time period. So 15% of that capture was spent on projects between $25,000 and $50,000, right? About 32% of that was spent on projects between $10 and $25,000, and 23% was between 5,000 and $10,000 dollars. So it's this is a rapidly growing category, we're still seeing, even though it's tamed down some, people are still investing. They're still using their equity in their homes to afford these projects. And so this is if you're new to selling exterior shades or trying to think of, okay, do I keep investing in my business to grow this market? This screenshot here or this screen here, it should give you the answer of yes, I should keep doing this because as we're looking at this, through 2030, they're expecting a 5.5% year-over-year growth, right?
Huge.
Yeah. And so it's, it really, solidifies that question of yes, let's keep investing in the business, or yes, I do want to make that jump into your exterior shades because it is not too late.
Yeah.
So,
And just to give some perspective, I mean, you talk numbers. I mean, just last year alone, the outdoor living market was $129 billion.
yeah, yeah,
And to kind of put that in perspective, I mean, if you think of like branding, you think of these huge mega companies, Tyson Chicken did 13 billion. And not, I mean, it's kind of comparing,
yeah,
apples to oranges, but you think of big name companies, you think of like dollars, and you think of everything is Tyson Chicken.
yeah.
So I mean, $129 billion
That's
is a
that's
huge,
massive.
there's a
Yeah,
lot of pieces of pies that can be cut out of that for our dealers.
yeah,
And, you've got a lot of people, it's also a huge investment. People are putting hundreds of thousands of dollars into their backyards. They're creating huge fire pits, gas fire pits, the outdoor kitchens. They're basically turning their backyards into resorts.
yeah.
And, that money you get out of it from a house when you go to sell the house. And
Exactly. I
it's
just
not
sold
like
my
you're
house.
you're
Yeah.
you're throwing away
Yeah.
money. You go to a resort, you
Right.
spend thousands of dollars on a vacation for a few days, but you come home to grass on your backyard and no way,
And then the debt from the vacation.
and then the debt from the vacation. So,
Right.
exactly. So, a lot of people, it's not just the outdoor living sector is growing, it's that more and more people are seeing the value in doing so,
Yeah.
which contributes to this growth. So it's great.
Yeah. And then two, so what is or who is the ideal customer, right? So, as we've grown through the past few years, and social media does this thing. There's a lot of say influencers out there that says, look at this new outdoor shade that I got from Amazon, blah 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 blah. Isn't it great and wonderful? Click the link in my profile to buy it. That's awesome. That may be for them, but at the same time, those customers actually aren't the ones that we want to be going after with this product, right? So that's kind of where I'm getting into the big box versus a custom, right? So the ultimate prospect is going to be one that really values a premium product, right? So what TEXTON offers, it is a true residential and commercial grade product, not just something that is going to last 2, maybe 3 years, right? This is a permanent product. So when you look at products that are maybe at Home Depot, sold through Amazon and so forth, that may what we see is those typically have a 2 year lifespan, right? That fabric may not be truly outdoor rated, things like that, and so it just tends to fall apart. So the right clientele really or truly has enough disposable income to justify a premium product. So when we look at what those attributes are here in the South, and so I know some of you are joining from up north or out in the West, but here in the South, we see it's a property that has a value of $600,000 or greater, but more so the income in that house is $200,000 or greater. These people are more or less, 40 years and up, so they are situated and established in their career, things like that, and they understand, they've been through those trials and tribulations of buying inferior products, going through those experiences, and like, yes, I want something solid. I want something that is going to work for the life of my home, right? So yeah. So if you want, again, this is being recorded, but I encourage you to maybe screenshot some of these if you want to, and save them for your own use. So TextOn, we offer, we're one of the few companies that offer a full range offering for exterior shades. And I say that because not only do we offer a cable guide shade, and the zip screen shade, but we have something unique called the pivot arm shade. And this is our answer to an awning. Um, and in the same regards, we have a full offering of things from a manual operation to a motorized, and for those motorized pieces, so the best solution for power is going to be your 110. We do offer a great solar rechargeable motor from Composite that we launched back in October, right? As far as fit and finish, so you have your option from a full box cassette to an open roll. A lot of folks choose the open roll when they're recessing it into a pocket for a true hidden application. A growing collection of fabrics. We are big supporters of the Bond Hub for
Yes.
connectivity to home automation. We have the wind sensor, which is crucial, and I can't say it enough. It is crucial to any installation because wind is the biggest factor when you're doing this, which we'll get to here soon too.
Yeah, and we put extensive research, and anytime we bring on any home automation platform or integration to those platforms is how, what if you come in and you have a competitor that already has interior roller shades? And that could be a detriment on your shade sales. Maybe you use the Rollies motors that we use or some of the other motor options and it's not configurable.
Right.
Well, we have the ability to link up to any of those home automation platforms. We carry a range of different motor options to accommodate if we can't. We are able to do that with a different motor package. Again, facilitate any sale for our dealers under any circumstance. That was our goal. So if it's not price, it's product. If it's not product, it's overcoming some objection that was maybe that isn't true from another manufacturer. So we're able to, and then on top of it, offer the entire suite of exterior shades. I can't tell you how many times I've come in and actually, the homeowner has come out and they've done a decorative pergola since then, right?
Yep.
Well, we don't need bug protection. We've got the lattice on the top so there's no water protection. We have these really nice decorative corbels. We don't want you to do build out. That's gonna change the look of this. We just, we've got our fire pit here maybe.
Yeah.
We just want to block the sun and the wind. There's some things you can do with cable guides too, in terms of an inside face mount or an outside face mount, which virtually is going to give you that same bug protection. Mosquitoes aren't real smart, so they're not going to be looking for that.
I don't know, man.
Inch. They'll just kind of bounce around.
Some good mosquitoes keep chasing after me, only me alone. On my back patio.
Sweet, Ryan.
Exactly right.
But I've talked to homeowners that have, had zip screens and, they live by a lake and they're like, if I don't have the screens down by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, all I did was trap them in for the night anyway.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of things we can do with these shades based on the application. That really, and other dealers wouldn't be able to sell those. We're coming in and adding these shades to different applications and getting these sales for our dealers, which is great.
So when looking at the cable guide shade, what would you say are the top two applications or the top two things that a dealer must know when offering a cable guide shade?
Okay, so first you're going to meet with your homeowner. Again, at the end of the day, you want to listen to what your homeowner's expectations are. The homeowner knows the property better than you. And they say, well, as you can tell, if they live by a lake, well, we're always getting 20 or 30 mile an hour winds. We're always getting 20, 30 mile an hour winds. The wind or the bugs are not an issue. Because we're always getting wind. We just want to block this wind and the sun. Cable guides are a fantastic option for that. They do very well in the wind. Again, the system is stronger than most of your installs, and that's the problem. It's who's installing it, you know?
Right.
I mean, that's 90% of the shades. I mean, if you're installing it with the hardware that we send
Hmm.
for the application, or you get guidance like, hey, this is something that, you know, I need it to withstand a certain threshold. You know, there's hardware options in terms of fixing it to the structure and practices that you can use so these shades don't ever come out. I personally have never had a cable guide rip out, and I've installed them on cliffs, you know, all
Yeah,
over the country, the base of Pikes Peak in Colorado,
we have. Yeah, yeah.
years and years ago. And so uh, also cable guides allow you to overcome, like in this picture, for example, it's hard to tell from the angle. This homeowner originally wanted zip screens, but the shade would have fallen right on the window.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And so we were able to kind of scoot the shade in and run a cable. So the optics, your sight line from inside the house, you don't have a big, you know, what I consider a cob job where you're trying to do a build out in front of
Right.
a window. So this way, it's like this shade was designed for the patio. Now, the only people that know is a pro or the homeowner because we had discussed that. But that allows you to kind of work around variables for the homeowner,
It looks
right?
very clean. Just very
Yeah.
clean, very put together, right? Yeah. For a zip screen, I would call this this is the premium, ultimate solution, right? This is what everyone wants to trap in or to keep out bugs, things,
And keep things.
and keep things out, right? Kind of walk through this. It is why would someone besides the points that I just made, want a zip shade? What are the top two things that a dealer must know when offering a zip screen shade to a customer?
Well, I mean, if the homeowner is looking for bug protection and they want a year-round room, right?
Yeah.
So if that's the expectation, these systems do very well. You know, the amount of utility out of a zip screen shade, I mean, basically, once we put these shades in, you're adding square footage without paying taxes,
Yeah,
right?
it's true.
I
Yeah.
mean, literally, they trap, depending on the fabric you use, they trap the equivalent input as much as they block it. So, you know, it's not uncommon. I mean, we've installed in below freezing, and I'm like, I'll tell the homeowner, I'll prove that to you. If you've got a little heater, I'll
Yeah.
drop these shades and show you. And depend, you know, based on wattage and square footage, you know, I've seen them put a 2,500 watt infrared heater, and that's 80 degrees in their patio in
That was
30
perfect.
minutes.
Yeah.
And, you know, so that's something that you really, I mean, when you're talking about selling a premium product at a, you know, and they're not cheap, what are they going to do? Why are they expensive? You're building value in the product, right?
I think the big thing that you just I mentioned is why, right? Don't sell features and benefits, right? Focus on the why. Go. Sell on the feelings, but most of all, sell on the why,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and then based on your capabilities, you know, I mean, TEXTON's known for incorporating the shades into your structure. I mean, the goal is to bring the shades, is to install the shades, even if it's a retrofit. A lot of times, you know, just given the properties that we're installing on, that's the expectation of
Mhm.
homeowners. So your capabilities, um, after the sale will sell you the shades. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, there's a lot of people that's like, well, you know, the shades were cheap, but boy, I mean, look at the Texton shades next door, and they just installed those, and it looks like it was made with the house.
Yeah.
That is something that's an upper echelon. That kind of puts you in a category that sets yourself apart. So it's not just the shades, the quality of the install. We spend, you know, we take our time. You know, if you're an interior roller shade guy, you need to slow your roll on zip shit, you know,
Yeah.
on exterior shades. You're hammer drilling into structures. There's a lot that goes into like, you know, making sure that these shades will withstand the lifetime warranty that we put
Exactly.
on them.
So Jake has a question. Has there been any studies on heat loss in the winter? So being a heater on the patio with cable guide versus zip.
Well, obviously you're going to have, and it's based on a lot of different factors too. So how did you mount the shade? What's your overlap?
Yeah.
In which
With regards to cable, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
orientation of the house on the property in relation to the wind. You know, you do have fabric gaps on either sides, and
Hmm.
you can mitigate that in certain ways, but there's a lot of factors that go into just taking, you know, a heat gain score.
That's true.
What's the
Yeah.
ambient temperature? What's the, you know, the humidity at the time? I could, I can tell you personally that I put a heater on my patio and it was 26 degrees You're talking a 10 by 20 patio. It heated that space to 80 degrees in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that's a zip screen though. You're talking about fully sealed. Maybe, I don't know if there's a lot of wind that night. These are gonna, obviously wind pulls heat from a source. But a great question. I
Yeah.
mean, I'd love to have some uh,
Maybe that should be a
testing.
weekend project.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. So, and kind of moving to the pivot arm shade. So this is pretty unique, right? So, in the past, we used to offer an awning that kind of comes out like this, horizontally. And it just wasn't effective for our market. So we adopted this pivot arm shade. And, it was when you kind of look its origin, right? So coming from Australia, you use a lot on just the actual windows of homes to keep the sun out during
Rollout, rollout
exactly.
windows.
But here in the States, we're finding that it has a true outdoor living use, right? More so for kitchens and things. So kind of elaborate on why someone would want a pivot arm shade.
So the pivot arm is unique in that you can, unlike an awning that you can set at a certain pitch,
Mhm.
right? That is not something that you can do on the remote. So if you need that at a certain time, it takes a technician to come out, adjust the X, Y, and Z axis on that shade temporarily to allow you to hit that certain angle. Also, the pivot arms are great. The applications for pivot arms, think of, you got a multi-million-dollar house and you're on a corner property with a cast iron fence and you're going to
Mhm.
show off 16 feet of white Schedule 40 for your pool equipment. I mean, we can custom color match that pivot arm to the structure of the house, protecting not only camouflaging that pool equipment, but protecting it from the sun and the rain. And we have pool companies as dealers that sell pivot arms along with the
Yeah.
pools, and they custom print that shade to match the house. How awesome is that to be able to do that? Look at the utility of that. Schedule 40 is made to, in case you don't know, Schedule 40 is not UV rated. It's
Oh,
meant to be
okay.
under the ground, right? It's just that that's the option.
And that's the level that PVC pipes are built in, right?
Yeah, and
Okay.
so all the pool companies are still using that white Schedule 40. And what happens is it gets brittle over time. And
Mhm.
then in the winter time, of course, it gets cold and it fails. Well, your pool isn't working, it has to be running, right? You gotta keep the pool warm. If you've got a heater, it's freezing cold. So
Yeah.
you're under the gun to get it fixed. And I've talked to these pool companies. That was the main driver of them actually selling the pivot arms because I said, well, what do you charge to come out and do that? We spend 4 or 5 grand, and then depending on the damage of the UV damage, we might have to cut out
Oh
eight
my
eight
word.
feet under the ground. So you're talking about major fix. And of course, just like anything, if they get there, well, your pool, the pump housing is kind of degraded too. $300-400, I can replace that for you, make you look. So by the end of the day, you're 5 or 6 grand just to get your pool pump working again. Whereas you can put a
Oh,
shade on it and protect that equipment. It keeps the water moving through the equipment cooler, 20 degrees cooler on average, right? Because you're
yeah.
keeping the sun, you're camouflaging it. If you need to add your chemicals to it,
Yeah.
right through the glass lens, just you got your remote, hit the button, raise your shade. You can work on it. You can drop the shade down. You can put it on a timer and have it come down during the day and go up at night if you're worried about,
Yeah.
any,
That's awesome.
animals messing with it. It's an awesome product. Now, in this application, this is actually a house we went out to. The homeowner's main concern is they had a huge patio. It's a big L-shaped patio. They want to entertain. I don't know. You kind of see they had the entire outdoor living. You can see in
Yeah.
the left-hand side, they've got the big outdoor kitchen with a shallow landing for their pool. They've got the fire pit with the Adirondack chairs. They wanted to be able to entertain, like
Hmm.
add chairs and talk to you. You can't see the chairs are from on the back of the house. So their concern was if we do exterior shades, we're only going to have a 2 feet walkway around these chairs. It's just not conducive to entertaining.
Right.
So they wanted to block the sun and the wind. They don't have an issue again with bugs because they're out in basically open field land. Right?
Yeah.
It's like they're always getting wind. But they wanted to be able to drop the shades and still have, be able to put chairs there so they can conversate. And so they didn't want to do zip screens. So I said, well, what about this pivot arm? And I showed them some videos. They're like, that's great. It gives them an extra 4 feet because the shade
Yeah.
comes down at an
It looks
angle,
sharp
20
too.
degree
Yeah.
angle. It says 30 in the literature, but you can do 20 degrees. And so basically what you're doing, think if you have these wood columns with, you've got your 4 foot step
Yeah.
out at Tudor stone, right? You see this a lot. The option with zip screen is, okay, we can come in, we can build out, right? We'll shave the top cap
Right.
so the rail seats flush. We'll use our foam. We can do that. Well, we don't want that. We purposely wanted that look. Well, now we can do that with a pivot arm, excuse me. Now we can do that with a pivot arm, and you can get with a 5 foot arm, you get 3 different arm lengths. You get a 3, 4, and a 5 foot length. And you can do 120 inches of vertical coverage. So, you're
Right.
talking about bringing the arms down to be able to overcome the obstacle, which is that built out stone around the column without having to do major build
Yeah.
up. It's not, at the end of the day, it's not necessarily what you want. You go over options for the homeowner, and it's what the homeowner wants. Maybe they care more about the aesthetic of their house, and they don't care about bugs. They want to block the sun and the wind. That's a perfect
Right. Yeah.
product for that application. It's a niche application with a niche product.
Yeah. So let's kind of jump into how the TEXTON offering fits into the market, right? So on a basic end, right? And I covered a portion of this previously, but when we're looking at the big box retailers and e-commerce brands, right? So we have what's commonly sold at those stores, the Coolaroo, the drop shades, things like that. More often than not, there's no side retention systems to where it's just fabric in the wind. We know for a fact that it has a 1 to 2 year durability rating because they may add chrome to the plastic, which is then also part the fabric and based on sun exposure just starts to tear things out like that. But the true story behind this is it's very common for these components to not be truly exterior rated, right? It's very easy to take interior components, slightly modify them for exterior use, and then put it out there in the market. And so the reason that I'm saying that is because that there are a lot of those companies out there that put an interior product out there for exterior. They will drop the price and say, hey, I can get you into this product for $1,200 installed. But there's a reason behind that because they didn't invest in the longevity of the product. They're just trying to get a sale.
Yeah. So at the end
yeah.
of the day, our system, it's a commercially rated product. It's powder coated. We'll go over all the benefits to this level of shades. Again, you don't want to really talk, you don't want to talk bad about competitors. I can tell you from experience, I go and replace a lot of Coolaroo shades just because they couldn't afford the TEXTON shades before. I'm like, that's fine, that's go ahead and give it
Yeah.
a shot. And then a year or two later, they're coming back and like, hey, we appreciate everything you said, and
Yeah.
you're right. And we'd like to go ahead and get real shades, the real commercial rated
I think it
shades.
brings us to this really is, when you look at a TEXTON product, this is truly approved for commercial and residential use. About 25% of what we manufacture actually gets done in a commercial setting, be it for hotels, restaurants, things like that.
Yeah,
So,
and that's backed up. A lot of big dealers from time to time will reach out to me on the contract language with about the shades. So all the specs of the shades, everything's UL listed. And so I can send that to you if you're ever working with a big
Mhm.
commercial developer and they want to do the shades. I can easily send that to you. So we have all the
Awesome.
documentation that supports commercial applications as well.
Very, very cool.
They're custom made. That's something you don't see a lot of times. These Coolaroo, the drop shades, they're in standard widths, right? So it's 4,
Yeah.
4, 8, 10, 16, 16 foot widths. So we custom make them, within an eighth of an inch of your opening. So that's a great look just in and of itself because it's a custom made product for that particular opening. Of course, expert installation by certified installers. Anybody that sells the product before they can sell it, they need to come in and do the
Yeah.
training with us. We go over all the tips and tricks and the nuances to a system. I wouldn't pretend at this level, I wouldn't pretend even if I'd been installing for
Right.
15 years, I don't pretend just because I've installed this
Oh.
particular product to know this product. There's nuances and there's tips and tricks that I can show you to really save you a lot of time in the field and make these systems last for a long time, based solely on the install.
Yeah.
The systems themselves that I've seen, the systems are much stronger than most of what most people think are needed to install these shades. So if you can match the product with the equivalent installation practices, you've got just an outstanding product.
Yeah.
And it's designed to match the aesthetics of your home style. So we've got real sleek, nice, we've got the new powder coated finishes and those.
But you're coming live here soon, so
Yeah,
don't let the cat out of the bag yet.
But in the colors we choose, I think the colors are just fantastic.
Yeah.
I've worked with some textile companies in terms of designing some of our fabric colors
Right.
too, like our sunrise and our
Yep.
fossil fabrics are really unique, real pretty. But again, we can match with the systems to match and blend in with the aesthetics of your home.
Yeah. So let's get into kind of the meat and potatoes of this session. So we just kind of did a quick primer on what the exterior shade offering from a TEXTON is. But then, okay, how do we sell it, right? How do we combat these objections that that our consumers are seeing online, all that stuff. So, got some quick polling and gaming here. So, I want to launch a question here. So, one second here, guys. So there is a quiz. If you can answer this, are exterior shades only for blocking sunlight? So just do a quick fact or myth, and we will have everyone answer it. I think you gave away half of our answers, Jeff.
Look how good the training is. 100%. Well, it's pretty easy.
But I'm trying to be fun here. I mean, come on. So really,
pretty smart group.
We have a very smart group, right? So I'm going to end this poll, right? So 100% got it right. This is a, while exterior shades do block light, they also help control the climate and the patio. So yeah, you let the cat out of the bag. So I can't have my fun here and quiz our guests. So let's go on to fact number 2. So let me go here to launch this a poll. Motorized shades are a luxury item and not a necessity. Let's see who does this. All right, now we're getting some differences here. All right, this is interesting. So as of right now, we have about 33% saying that it's a fact, 56% saying that it's a myth. I think this could be a mythbuster.
Oh, 50,
wow.
Okay,
50.
so it's kind of a loaded question because it depends who you ask.
Right.
It depends who you ask. So what we saw, of course, we see that
50-50.
So I can tell you, we see this huge influx of people from Chicago and California, and I'll be talking about the screens for the dealers because I'm going to start from the basics with a homeowner unless I know otherwise. So I'm going to start promoting the product, and they're just kind of standing there nodding and almost like I'm boring them. And I say, I'm sorry, do you have any questions for me? Like, I can tell they're boring me. And they're like, oh yeah, we know they're good. We've had them for 20 years. It started in California in the north, in southern Canada with the shades. And people don't realize because it's been like the past 5 or 6 years where it's really been, people are becoming aware of the shades. But You know, you talk to somebody that has them, once you have them, you'll never own a home without them because,
I know.
and
Yeah.
so it's kind of a loaded question. It's like, well, talk to somebody that has them and you'll realize what a necessity they are, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think more and more and more as we see properties, $800,000 and above, it will be a necessity. We're seeing a lot more home builders including this in their specs as an add-on or as an option, right? Home builders here in the Dallas Fort Worth area. I mean, they're always adding them. I know the builder that I'm working with, Shattuck. They're starting to involve that. So yeah, it is growing quickly because people see, hey, I want true outdoor living. I don't always want to be cooped up in my home. I want some fresh air. So okay, so myth. So let's go back. So we have another one here. So let me go on this one here. So exterior shades can be used in all seasons. So what does everyone think here? Most folks are thinking that it's a fact. Good. We have half of the participants doing it. All right. Actually, and so it is a fact. Yeah. So, I know that we launched the clear vinyl in October, right? Um, if we can all put our devices on mute, that would be very helpful. But the clear vinyl, I guess, really that true year-round effort, right?
Yeah, I mean, and allows you to add on shades too. So really clear vinyl, anybody in the industry kind of knows. I mean, clear vinyl, it is not your greatest, that is a unique application that you sell it to restaurants.
We're going to take a short break. You're
Nobody,
watching
if I'm new in town, if Brian and I are flying somewhere and we're
Washington.
looking to eat somewhere, you're not going to eat someplace where nobody's eating at. So for restaurants, it does two things. For one, restaurants want this because they want their guests being seen, and
Right.
or they're trying to promote the view on a lake, but they want to trap the heat and air conditioning. So if you're selling it to a restaurant, it's usually they've got some money at the end of the year, they need to spend it, or they're
Mhm.
going to have to pay taxes on it. They're looking to add improvements to the hotel or to the restaurant. Just think, I mean, I can tell you, I have two young kids, and if we go somewhere to eat
Oh my gosh, yeah.
and they tell us it's a 45-minute wait, it could be
You're
their
like,
favorite
nope, nope,
restaurant. We're
I'm done.
leaving.
I'm done.
We're
Yeah.
going. We're not. We have to do it.
No matter how good their chips and salsa are, right?
Yeah, or their
Yeah,
chicken fingers.
exactly.
So we're leaving. But just think of the value of a hotel, of a restaurant, being able to take that overflow and be able to seat those guests. Just think of all the additional revenue. I've seen on patios, 20 by typical 20 by 30 patio, not a big, or even a 10 by 20. You get 5 or 6 big tables,
Yeah.
you've got 10 tops. So you've got 60, 70 extra people on a 20 by 40. You can get upwards of 100 people comfortably. I'm talking 4-foot walkways.
Yeah.
Think of the added value that you can seat those 100 people and be able to feed them, right? And you're doing that 3 times a day.
Yeah.
You've got a breakfast
That's a
rush, you
lot
got a
more
lunch
revenue.
rush,
Yeah.
you've got a dinner rush. Be honest with them. Be honest with them. They are very maintenance dependent, right? So these clear vinyls, we have a 1-year warranty on the clear vinyl. We tell them that they don't care. Come back in a couple of years and we'll just replace that clear vinyl. They understand because they get a return on that investment so much faster than a regular homeowner, just in terms of the utility they get from that shades. They can heat the space, they can air condition, and then oftentimes too, the dealers are saying, well, obviously it's a greenhouse in the summer, right? So what do we do in the summer? Well, let's pancake another exterior shade on the inside.
Exactly.
Let's do a 70% fabric so you can, block the sun, allow a little bit of that permeability to
But
kind
then
of keep it cool
the bugs out. Yeah.
and keep the bugs out.
Exactly.
So, it's really tailored for that niche sale, which is restaurants.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
I love it. So let's kind of go into our next one here. So we got let's see, myth number 4, right? Oh, why can I not launch this one? All right, guys. So exterior shades can withstand strong winds and harsh weather conditions. So, yeah. So I guess fact is yeah, our shades are designed to handle winds over 80 miles an hour and protect outdoor spaces from those elements. So, and I've got a lot more detail too as to why or to as to how these strong winds are or how our shades deal with the winds. So our next portion here is really, how do we handle competitive, objections, right? So again, everything it's and it's sad because as we're trying to sell on value and the essence of why and feelings and whatnot, it largely does come down to features and benefits based on what they heard online from social media, all of these things. And so I pulled together, our most common objections that we get from homeowners, or biggest like, hey, gotchas that our dealers have concerns with, right? And so, kind of I'm moving into this. So one, or I guess the number one that we always get is the videos I see online from the other shade companies show that their shade is indestructible. How does TEXTON hold up, right? So we're talking about companies where they're actively like charging into these screens. They're taking baseball bats, and it's goofy, right? And so my, our, or excuse me, our standpoint is, while these videos look convincing, they're highlighting really common engineering and build factors used in these exterior systems. But what they aren't showing is the longevity of some of their components that they have maybe skimped on, right? So, Texton, we use all metal construction in what I call function critical components, right? So like your side channels, rails, all of those things. Is there plastic on some of our shades? Yes, but those are not mission critical elements, right?
Or where you don't want metal because
Exactly.
of noise, vibrations, longevity is.
Exactly. And so it's like, as we're seeing this, what you're also not seeing is that shade running, right? So it's easy to secure that shade into a structure to where when you run into it or shoot a 2x4 into it, it's not going to get damaged because they've engineered it for that video.
Right.
But sadly, it's convincing the homeowner, hey, actually, here's what you're seeing, and it just creates an awkward conversation. But these are just some facts to kind of keep in your tool belt as we kind of go through this. This is a one too. Yeah, this is classic. Brand X is less expensive for the same system. Why would I pay more?
So let me give you an example
Yeah.
of that. So during COVID, of course, we were all working from home. I had a dealer that called me, and I knew he wasn't loyal to me. He was just he had a competent install team, and he was just selling a homeowner whatever brand the homeowner wanted. Whether it was based on price. Now they were considered to be the same tier as us in terms of, commercially rated system. So he called me and he said, I've got a real mess. He said, I sold about 5 jobs to homeowners that the shades were $100 cheaper than you were. And he said, the problem is that they're all calling me and they're saying that their shades are making noises and that the brackets, the bracket, it looks like the brackets broke. Well, this particular manufacturer thought it would be wise to use plastic end caps, and then they had a metal fascia with a metal back. So it looked like a commercially rated system. Well, what happens is all the torque's on the motor. So you get below freezing and the plastic becomes brittle,
Yeah.
and it shatters the end cap. So anybody that knows exterior shades knows that in order to fix that, you have to totally take down the shade. So he told me, he said, I just want to let you know, I'm going to keep buying from TEXTON. I spent, $3,000 in labor to send my team around to fix all these systems. Now the manufacturer was kind enough to give them new plastic brackets, but now you've got a deal that says, hey, I didn't tell you because the manufacturer never told you because it wasn't tested for all weather conditions.
Right.
It's probably best not to run these below freezing. So now you have a homeowner, now you've got TEXTON shades maybe on the next door house and they're running them below freezing and they're not, oh, well, we have metal end caps. And then it makes the dealer, just because of lack of knowledge, which they should, they have an expectation. My thing is, I know y'all have an expectation that you should be able to count on everything that I say about these shades as the truth. Because at the end of the day, you're dealing with the homeowners, and obviously, my job is not to embarrass our dealers. It's to equip them with every counter to objection and the product to support that. That's my end goal as a product manager. So that's some things where, really be leery, or if you have something like that, a situation where somebody, you're selling, somebody gives you a quote, you can send it to me. I can dissect those components and tell you why we're more expensive than the other. Obviously you've got a lot of great sales tools where you get them off price for one, right? You don't talk. So if a homeowner guides you down a price rabbit hole, you say, well, do they have lifetime warranty? Are they utilizing fiberglass fabric, which is much cheaper and only has a 5-year warranty as opposed to TEXTON's? You're building value as opposed to price. Any good salesman, people don't just stop selling BMWs because there's a recession. There's salespeople that are good at selling the ultimate driving machine, right? So that's embedded into your head. There's always a market for those people that appreciate, under any circumstances, they want the best product for their application, and that's always going to be there, whether in hard times or not. So you target target your customer. It's just a matter of targeting your market, and you can insulate yourself from those good times and bad times or not, but they see the value in a product that's at that level.
So probably the second biggest one that we get is, can your shades withstand high winds and impacts like brand X, right? And this is similar to the other question that I raised. And so the short answer is yes, but there's a lot of things that we need to understand here, right? So TEXTON shades have been tested to withstand winds of 87 miles an hour. This was tested, like the other fabricators, in a wind tunnel where the shade was perfectly installed to withstand those conditions.
A couple engineers.
And so these winds, these are not like gusts or things. This is a steady 87 miles an hour wind tunnel going into the shade. But again, you do not want to run that shade at 87 miles an hour. At the same time, every manufacturer who has a wind rating, just like TEXTON does, will always say, do not run your shades in a wind.
31.
Exactly. And if you're going to have a windy day, like here in Dallas we did yesterday, roll the shades up before any damage occurs. Because what happens is, no matter what shade manufacturer you're working with, as you're rolling those shades in the high wind applications, that fabric starts to billow. Things become out of line, out of track, things out like that, right?
The big thing is there's a lot of manufacturers that will promote their 150 mile an hour exterior shades. But the thing is if you're not putting that on a house that has concrete roofing tiles and foundation strapping and was Miami-Dade certified as the entire structure, the entire house is gone with the shades and 150 mile an hour winds. I don't think people understand that your house is going to go before the shade, along with the shades, because there's all kinds of forces like racking and uplifting based on where the house is positioned. And there's no way for you to know that on a calm day. That house might be situated just right on a southwest point, and you're telling them that you're going to put 150 mile an hour shades. The next thing is too, before I even say that, I would actually say, if a homeowner says, well, they've already been talked into some type of a wind load on the shade. So when's the last time you saw a 90 mile an hour wind?
Oh yeah, this is a good slide.
Okay, when's the last time you saw it? Because I can tell you in Dallas and DFW proper, the last time a 90 mile an hour wind was around was 2007.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen for the majority of the country. Now, at the same time, if you're selling these shades to a house on the Outer Banks where they're getting 30, 40 mile an hour winds, maybe gusts of 100, couple times, a year, over 100, you need a hurricane rated shade to go in conjunction with a hurricane rated house. Let's just be, that's the thing is like, if you don't have those special concrete roofing shingles and you've got an engineer that's going to design your house to withstand it, it's a fallacy for somebody to sell somebody something that they're paying a premium for an event that never happens, Ryan, you're not putting titanium plates on the top of your house
Right.
because a meteor might hit the roof of your house. It's just it's kind of a fallacy to be able, to prepare for something. I mean, you'll see in 65-mile-an-hour winds, most of your shingles are blown off. There's significant damage to the sheathing on your house. Isn't it better just to raise your shades? It's better to raise
Yeah.
your shades. None of the manufacturers, even the hurricane rated manufacturers, their warranties are explicit in that they don't cover acts of nature. Right?
Exactly.
So even though they might tell you that they'll do that, if they do and your house is gone with the shades, they're not going to replace your shades.
Exactly. So the last question that we always get, or that our dealers always get, is we want the cleanest, kind of most minimalistic install out there. What does TEXTON offer? And that's actually the beauty of our system. And it's it is a very, very small track and rail system, 1.5 inches of a float. So why would someone need that much float, and kind of how does that work?
Again, these systems were designed for install teams. Most based on different areas of the country, an inch and a half of float, most openings on an exterior shade are off by an inch and a half or an inch. The framing needs to be straight, the brick doesn't, right?
Right.
And I've seen, anywhere you go, they brick a whole home. I've seen them brick a 3,000 square foot home in 2 days. Should they be dropping plumb lines? Yes, but it's just the way of the world. They're usually never. So at that point, just picture your install team. They're 2 hours from the shop on an install. They're an hour away from Home Depot, and somebody forgot to put the 3/4 inch build out to match the hardy board trim that's wraps the header. So think about what you're in. Now they're mad. Now they got to go to Home Depot. They're going to spend 2 hours just driving. They're going to get this wood. Then they're going to they're going to paint it, right? You're going to go to lunch. You're going to wait 30 minutes if you use a 2-time prime, wait for it to dry before you attach it, or you're going to have to try to scrounge up some aluminum build out to achieve that. Time saver. You spend half the day just trying to get the build out, whereas our rails will float 3/4 of an inch on either side to be able to lock it in, giving you that inch and a half of float. That's huge. I mean, you're talking a huge percentage of your installs that you can just overcome by just the inner rails.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's kind of get into, and this is really our last big topic, really. As I mentioned in the beginning, there's a separate or whole different, say, mentality or mantra that goes along with selling exterior shades. Completely different process than doing interior applications. So I kind of wanted to touch on some common themes and things that we see within managing your business while offering exterior shades. Expectations that need to be set, things like that. When we look at this, when you look at kind of, the interior versus the exterior products, right? One exterior shade is, cost and money wise is roughly equal to 5 interior shades. So when you look at a revenue, if you want to drive revenue for your business efficiently, exterior shades is probably the easiest way to do that. And
yeah, just think interior shades. If you're a dealer that's used to selling interior shades, you do 30 interior roller shades. Well, you might have a problem with the motors on 3. I'm not saying TEXTON's motors, but there's going to be, or maybe there's a fabric that's damaged. So now you just compounded 30 opportunities before you get paid, as opposed to 4 exterior job, at shades in 1 day, and we're going to get them in there. If we're installing, those shades are, chances are, they're asking me, because we do a lot of the installs for dealers. A lot of times they're trying to give me a check on the install. The day of the install. So if you're talking about making the most amount of money with the least amount of effort in terms of the entire product, exterior shades is the way to go.
It is way to go. And then the install is more profitable too, right?
Exactly. I mean, TEXTON, anybody in the market. I mean, I have a gauge of our dealers across the country, and I've spoken to them. Everybody's pretty much right where we are. But again, if it's Murphy's Law, you can have the best product, right? I had a Toyota, I'm really throwing brands out there, but I had a truck that's touted as the greatest
Yeah.
thing. Well, 4 months into it, the fuel pump went out.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
Murphy's Law. They replaced it, never had a problem with it since. So if it is to happen, you're going back out there. Now on an interior shade, it's one person that can take that shade down. It's two people on an exterior shade, right? So instead of having a conversation, when you're pricing the install, you want to price it like expect to go back once in a year,
Yeah.
right? That way you look like a hero when the homeowner, you come back and it's free and we fix it. We went ahead and fixed that for you. A lot of products don't do that. They charge you every time you come out to the house. Doesn't matter what you do, pest control every single time you come out. So it's kind of nice, you build value in the system. They had already paid for the install. Go ahead and take care of them next
Exactly.
year.
So, the other thing too is, with interior shades, you go out, look at the windows, you measure, ask them what fabric they want, things like that, right? Um, exterior shade, it's a much more, elongated process, right? So when you go visit a property for the first time, you're doing two things. You're measuring, but you're also doing a site consult, right?
Yeah, you're an investigator. You're an investigator. So as I'm walking up to the property, as I'm walking around the house, not only um, not only am I looking at what the house placement is in relation to wind, how big the property is it an open field or is it, a small postage stamp property,
Mhm.
which is probably not going to be, get that much wind. And then I pick out in my head, like, if this was my house, which system would I put on it?
Yeah.
And that's the easy way of just doing best practice is like, what if it was me, what would I do if this is my house? And it goes for everything, whether it's install or consultation. When I'm installing, I've had homeowners come out and say, wow, that's a lot of hardware to be putting in them. Like, yeah, it's a lot of hardware until you've got a 300-pound shade with a 50-mile-an-hour wind
Yeah.
and your 5-year-old is sitting underneath it, right? So overkill, right? I'd rather have somebody say it's
Overkill,
ridiculous what
yeah.
they do or like, how much time they were here. But, we make it look like it's part of the structure. And so when you're talking to the homeowner, you've already got an idea of like, if this is my house, you've already got a best practice scenario in your head. So when you're listening to the homeowner, is this something that can I switch to this system that they want? Or if I wouldn't do it, why wouldn't I want to do
Yeah.
that? So you're either, you're guiding the homeowner through the sales process using best practices.
Exactly. I can't say this enough, guys. You're getting in here, and again, the theme is document. Documentation, having the homeowner sign off on what you have communicated, because here's what happens, right? And feel free to jump in, but it's like, we're dealing with an area that may or may not have power already run to it, right? So during your measure or yeah, your measure and site consult, marking for power. If they need power, who is responsible for putting in that power, communicating to the homeowner, hey, you need to hire an electrician to do this, things like that. Here's what I need from you on the day of install where I can't install the shades. Do I need to move a gas line? Do I need to do this? And have a form that the homeowner signs off. I'm sorry.
Our measure form.
Yeah, our measure form, which I'll show you here in a second, that they sign off and say, yes, I agree to these terms. Here's what I'm going to do, for this, and where you have a plan, to where they can't come back on you and say, you didn't tell me that this is changing and whatnot.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and we go over this in the training. I don't want to get in too much of the details, but during the training I basically show you that there's nowhere to go. If you have your install team, you're the owner of the company. Your install teams are going out and measuring. What if a homeowner calls you and you can't get a hold of your install team? right? And it's like, well, just let me wait until he gets, no, you can pull up the measure sheet and all of Timmy's notes are in there, right? I mean, I put
Let's not
everything.
pick on Timmy every time.
Yeah, all right.
No, I'm kidding.
But it's really one of those things. Everybody should be able to speak to calls to action, I call them. So when I go out to measure, I set an expectation with the homeowner because maybe I'm meeting the wife and the husband isn't there. And now I'm going to rely on her to convey it. Will things get lost in translation or vice versa? So when I go out, I mark with power with the specs of the motors, fluorescent green tape, and I mark exactly where I want it. If the slope of the patio exceeds the maximum length of the gasket, I put a big fluorescent green piece of tape says slope exceeds. So I've got all these calls to action. So what happens is like a lot of times you'll meet, because I understand the dynamic between the dealer and the homeowner. So what'll happen is a lot of times they won't call me, they'll call the dealer and say, hey, what's this tape? Oh yeah, okay, so Jeff put that, yeah, your slope exceeds. So now you've got the dealer setting expectations in congruence with what I'm saying. Or maybe the dad wasn't there. He comes out and has his morning coffee in the morning. You start seeing all this tape. Hey, what is this? Well, maybe the dealer forgot to mention
I call
something
those
to the
the
inside.
Louis, late entry uninformed, and you have to resell those folks because they're like, oh, why?
Yeah, so I'm not saying all homeowners are difficult, but what we do as part of the training is we mediate anybody's personality.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's nice to be able to sit back and go, oh, well, this is why we did it. I look at the notes. This is why we're going to do this. This is why we're going to, as opposed to you're scrambling and you're trying to think of something to say. Well, everything is there. Everybody knows what's going on, whether they were on the job site or not.
Right.
It makes it smooth and easy. Our dealers love that about us, is because we make a notoriously difficult process and product installation smooth and easy, because we it's communication. At the end of the day, you're a project manager. Once you start doing exterior shades, think of yourself as a project manager, not a just a seller of shades.
Exactly.
I mean, you're managing products, whole projects. It's not uncommon for us to build a patio extension to get a shade to fit a certain way,
Right.
And that's all based on capabilities, of course, but lots of builder knowledge that you need to know of, a lot of building terms that make it easier to work with custom home builders. There's a lot of different angles in terms of measures, but
And that kind of goes within, setting our realistic expectations, right? And one of the biggest things that Jeff just mentioned, I recently was patio slope, right? There's what is within code, right? But then there's contractors that don't really look at code, and they'll just put a slope of whatever they want.
Yeah, I mean, most of y'all that have seen this, it's usually shade 1 and shade 4, right? That come off the house. The back of the house isn't slope, 1 and 4. Code is a 1/4 inch for every 6 feet. That's minimum slope for code. Most builders are more aggressive. It's usually, it's not uncommon to see 3 inches over 12 feet.
Yeah.
And there's things you can do. You can tell them, well, you can get a draft dodger off Amazon. You can put, we don't want to attach anything that's a trip hazard, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, once you go past that length of brush, it becomes a rigid nylon, like almost like a garage door type, and it doesn't do anything. It makes the shades sit uneven. So again, if you set that expectation with the homeowner, the worst thing you can do is a homeowner spend thousands of dollars fully enclosing their patio with the expectation of bug protection and to keep the creepy crawlers out, and they've got an 1.5-inch gap. They don't want to find that out on the day of the install. That's something you want to do.
Yeah.
In
Well, then,
advance.
the other part to setting, the great expectations is confidence, right? And so, as you're talking to the homeowner about what you offer, have a library I would say the most useful tool that you can have is not a tape measure, not a drill. It's
Not
an
the phones.
iPad. It's an iPad.
Absolutely.
Because an iPad does two things. You can easily show videos and photos of all your prior projects, and also you can use the Apple Pencil to mark and note for all of your forms, have them signed there, all that stuff. But showing the videos and photos of prior projects builds confidence with the homeowner that, hey, I've done these applications before. Here's what we've done. And with that being said, if you don't have a lot of videos, let us know. We have a plethora, a huge library of videos and photos that you can use on projects that we've actually installed and we can coach you through how this was done.
Yeah. And I can
Yeah.
tell you from personal experience, I have unwittingly, taken jobs from my competitors because, at the end of the day, let's say somebody's on the fence on this product and they, the husband and wife are talking at dinner and they're like, such and such came out and he's cheaper and, the shades are cheaper. And, well, did you see what do you see what it is? Oh, no, they didn't have a nice sample
Yep.
kit like TEXTON. Did they show you any videos of prior job? No, but TEXTON, they had like 300 videos and I even wanted it in the sable fabric and I was going to have them send me a fabric sample. Well, that could be 3 or 4 days. So why would I want the dealer to have to close or, if I was the dealer, why would I want to wait 3 or 4 days to be able to close the sale to pick out a fabric? I can just show you
Right.
on my iPad.
Yeah.
It really answers a lot of questions quickly. Because remember, the reason why homeowners are asking questions, they don't know you from Adam. They don't know what the product is. But actually showing somebody something shows like wow, look at how nice and tight the screens are. There's no wrinkles. Subconsciously, it builds so much value in you because it's a real it's how the product's actually going to look, and it also keeps your install teams honest.
And they can
right
visualize what it's like. Oh, okay, this is how beautiful it's going to be. Yes, I'm going to sign here.
Yeah. Well, it also if your install teams know, if it's 4 o'clock on a Friday and they've got big plans and they're looking to get out of there, and it's they're trying to finish their job. If you've got pictures to prove. You can't, it's pretty hard to cheat a picture on an exterior shade.
It is.
So again, you're keeping your teams, the consistency of a great product being sold every day by making them send you pictures. It does a lot of things, not in just in terms of the customer, but in terms of what are we putting out there in the field. If you get busy, you're not going to have time to drive around to all these different jobs and look to see what the jobs are. You're totally relying on what the homeowner. What if the homeowner has a problem? They say, well, this is a big deal. I'm like, well, I saw the pictures of it, and I'm questioning that. What we need to go there and see what's going on. So it gives you a lot of resources in terms of just knowledge of each product.
Yeah. So speaking of other resources, right? So when you sell TEXTON shades, we have a lot of really great resources available, right? So first and foremost, if you sell exterior shades, you got to get the actual sample kit, right? In the sample kit, guys or folks, it has almost every component that we use in this kit. So when they touch it, they're feeling, okay, this is a true metal enclosure. This is a true stainless steel bracket. All of those things, so where they can easily differentiate an inferior, system.
Yeah, and I don't want to go in too much detail of the kit, but during the sales, during the training, the installation training, I dissect each component of this kit and I tell you why we're better than the competition in order to sell it.
Yeah, and then we also have packs of brochures that are a great leave behind with the homeowner. You can actually get these co-branded as well. So if you send me your logo and your contact information, I can easily put your logo on these brochures, send it to you in a printable PDF, or I can actually print them for you, for a cost where you have a full and complete kit. I've gotten, or I've received a lot of questions here recently on, do we have a form? Absolutely. So what you're looking at here, this is our measure form for when any of our installers go out and measure a job on behalf of our dealers. This form is designed to walk you through every feature and option on our exterior shade program. And if you look down below, there's a box for special instructions, and this is when you write in notes, right? So power marked here. Here's the power. It requires this. And then, what we do is we actually, on the iPad, there's an app called Notability, and we actually import this, or our installers import this PDF into the app, and they go in and handwrite everything in. What's cool from there, if they want to, a homeowner can sign off and say, yes, I agree, easily email that new PDF to them to where everyone now has communicated all the expectations, all of the things that they want. And here, you're saying, hey, I'm gonna mount this on the wall, on the ceiling, on the inside, on the outside, below the header, all those architectural and structural pieces that you want, all of those things. So yeah, and so whether you need a build out, which is key, right? Because some walls aren't plumbed, that they need to be adjusted, and so we offer a build out to do that. So
Yeah, and
yeah,
this was a lot of feedback that I had gotten, from dealers, suggestions from dealers to include in the kit. One of which was, our standard and extreme sizes. As most of you know, if as soon as you get past 228 inches or 19 feet, it goes to an extreme. And so, you can imagine if you're quoting and you're quoting, you might be at 229 or 230,
right.
and you quote one way and then you run it through our system, and you see that's an extreme, it's significantly more. It's best to catch that as an extreme before, if you're quoting it along with pick at the same time.
Yeah.
How many people are on the job? So if you're quoting based on number of people, maybe if you got a 23-foot extreme, you're going to have 3 people, right? You're going to have somebody helping you hold that tube in the center,
Yep.
one on each end, pushing up the set. So you're going to have 3 people. So this just helps you too, is if you're kind of doing a delineated cost for install as a dealer, you can check these boxes to help you do that. But there's a lot of good stuff in terms of build out. And there's a lot of things that maybe you're forgetting, and you just see this on the measure sheet, and it's like, oh, this is something you need to do.
And this form, if you go to TEXTON.com, go to resources at the top, there's a on the left hand side or the left column, it's called exterior shade measure form. And so, but at the same time, all of our products have a measure form on there, and so those are just good things to download and keep, because they're step-by-step guides to really ordering our product. A lot of you have asked about training. Yeah, so we have, I would say, probably the best training program in the entire industry. Yeah, well, no, you do a fantastic job, and when people come to our facility, they're like, "Wow, this is incredible." The reason it's so powerful is we're actually doing live jobs on behalf of our clients, right, or on behalf of our dealers. So when you come to a Texon, we provide you with meals and a hotel, right? And so day one, it's a factory tour. And then we go over kind of, intensive product knowledge. And then the later half of that day, we actually drive out to actual jobs that we're doing. And you actually get to work with Jeff and see how we measure and consult for all of these jobs. And so there'll be maybe about 3 jobs that you go see, ranging in varied degrees of difficulty. And then on day 2, actually put a drill in your hand, and actually you become an active participant in installing these shades. And so when you leave this training, you're like, oh wow, I feel very confident, very empowered to actually keep doing this. And you learn a lot of tips and tricks that you may not know. So as Jeff mentioned, even if you've installed hundreds of shades from other brands, there's always nuances and tips and tricks for these systems. Highly, highly, highly encourage you to do this. And there's no cost. We pay for almost everything but airfare. And we love to have our dealer family here. And it's a great experience. Get to know the culture of a Texon and see how we do it. So I know I've gone way over time. And Jeff, thank you for your knowledge. I mean, man, you probably know more about exterior shades than anyone in the industry, which is incredible. I want to open this up to questions and whatnot that you may have. I know we've dropped off some participants. So I know Dennis asks a question of, do we have a form available, which we just shared. It can be found at texon.com. Arnold asked the same thing. Let's see. Oh, what are the shades? Good questions, Stephen. So the shade fabric, what is it made of?
So it's a polyester core with a PVA resin. So the PVA resin protects the inner core yarn from the elements. And the polyester is great because, you know, and I've shown homeowner this, probably one of the greatest things about our fabric, you can wad it up in a ball, like the sample, and you can throw it on the lawn, and in an hour, it'll go back to its original shape. The flexibility, it's thin, real ultra high thread count, very flexible. It's got a real nice, like mattish finish to it too, so it doesn't have like a cheapy, shiny look that, you know, some fabrics have. But it's great. I mean, a lifetime warranty. It's got a 15-year. Obviously, we're not a textile weaver, but so we buy the fabric. But that fabric from the original manufacturer has a 15-year warranty, and we just took it to a lifetime. I've seen this fabric. I've actually seen what would be considered like a second iteration. We're in the third iteration with nano fabrics, which are, you know, the fabric we use, ultra high thread count with a real thin thread. That's the holy grail in fabric. That's what you want, is to real high thread count, as thin as you can, gives you flexibility, makes it supple, gives you the longevity and the flexibility. But I've seen our older fabric that we just switched over to this new one a couple of years ago. But our old fabric, I went out to do a service call, and just one of the cables were loose. The house kind of settled a little bit over the years. The shade was 13 years old.
Oh my gosh.
With all original parts on it, including the motors. And I'll show you some cool things about the cable guide in terms of service calls, to be able to adjust them, to not have to add cables and all that. But, you know, I was looking at the fabric and it was a little dirty, so I took a rag and wiped it off, and I had a sample in my backpack of that fabric, and I held it up and it was identical. And I'm like, I asked the homeowner, I said, do you use these lines? He's like, oh yeah, we leave them down all the time. And I'm like, 13 years. And this fabric it hasn't even faded.
That's awesome.
So that was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So that's when it was after that, I was like, we're just going to take it.
And
to
that's
a lifetime.
Texas sun. Yeah.
Yeah, in Texas sun, right.
So Jorge asks, how reliable are solar powered motors? And so just before we answer that, so yes, we have a solar powered motor. We use the Caposa Autonomo motor. Solar powered battery motors are the second best option. You always want to lead with 110 of voltage, or just your standard plug-in. If power is not available, or if you're working on a commercial application where just to run power is excessively expensive, then that's where the solar power battery motor can kick in and be that great option. As far as being reliable, so two things. It is not a lithium battery, right? Because lithium batteries, you know, they don't perform well
cold temperatures
and extreme heat, which we get all over the country, right? So it's a NiCad battery, right?
Nickel cadmium.
Nickel cadmium battery. So you don't have those performance issues. You can literally on a full charge, you can go almost with 30 days without having some sort of sun and run these things once a day, right?
Yeah, so some real cool things. I mean, I've been wanting to bring in a battery option because I was running into situations, or I was having our dealers tell me, like one example was a commercial property. It was a restaurant. They did 12 shades. The electrician was going to charge $20,000 to run power. Right, so you can imagine it's commercial property. The electrician, whatever his rate is, now it's double because it's a restaurant. We're going to work at night. We're going to have to work from night. I'm going to have to hang from the 18-inch steel beams. It's commercial rated, so all that Romex has to be jacketed.
Oh yeah.
You know, so you're bending all that way. So labor intensive, very labor intensive. And the restaurateur is like, well, I don't know if I'm willing to spend that much money just for the power. And so I'm thinking, well, if there was an option that would allow you to run the shades without having to run power, regardless of power options, if the power goes out, you can still run the shades. So I've been looking for a while, and then we found in Germany the Caposa motors, and I started talking to some colleagues in Europe that had been testing it for a couple of years. And it's a phenomenal motor package.
Yeah.
You got a monocrystalline solar panel,
Yep.
which is the same as like on your house, like the good solar panels on
Yes.
top of your home. It's that
Super,
same.
super efficient.
Yep, super efficient. It's NiCad, so it's unaffected. It also has this thing called ice sense technology.
Oh yeah.
So it sends a gentle current through the battery once temperature drops below 40 degrees. So you get the same amount of charge as you would whether it's 120 degrees outside or
Yeah.
it's -50. So that's a really cool thing where it's always charging and it keeps the battery warm based on ambient temperature. It also has slow start, slow stop technology. So on exterior shades, sometimes they're kind of noisy. We had a lot of weight
Yep.
to them. It mitigates that. They're very quiet. They're 20 Newton meter motors, so they're huge motors. We can do the entire shade suite all the
Yeah.
way out to 20 feet with these shades and with the same
It's pretty
motor.
powerful stuff. Yeah.
And I tested them for about a year before we decided to launch it. No issues. I haven't even had an issue programming it, which is, I mean, they're great motors. And again, a 5-year warranty on a solar battery motor too. So it's got that 5-year warranty. They're fantastic, but it's a niche app. Again, it's a niche thing. Like Ryan said, you want to go to 110. But if you're about to lose a job at a restaurant because of power, or maybe, we do a lot of houses in Highland Park,
Yep.
right? So these big mansions, they're like castles, and you tell them that you're going to run conduit and paint the conduit to match the stone. You're not getting that job. And we've saved those jobs for
That was our
because of
first
that.
test project, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I'm able to put the solar panel on. They're able to keep the aesthetic of the house. They don't have all this conduit run around, and they get the sale. So
Yeah.
there's some real distinct advantages to that. Or think if you're putting shades on a boat dock, right?
Yep.
You don't have power.
You don't have power. Yeah.
Or they have to run power in order to get shades. You can do the solar battery motors.
So Mason asked, with the polyester fabric, is there a lot of stretch to it? As for the resin coating, is it a uniform things like that? So
yeah. So there is fiberglass fabrics in the marketplace, and those fiberglass fabrics, you won't see lifetime warranties on those. I think the best one I've ever seen on a fiberglass fabric is 5 years, right? But the fiberglass fabric doesn't shrink, or it doesn't flex as much in the wind. But the problem with that is you'll get what's called cupping or scarring. So like if a homeowner will run the shade up, they get a gust of wind, the shade creases. What happens is it breaks that inner core fiber, and then when the shades roll down, you'll see like these little cups in the fabric. They never go away because really all that's being held together is that PVA resin. So there is some advantages to fabrics like that to the fiberglass. It's significantly cheaper a linear yard for a manufacturer. So if you're just going on price, they look similar to our fabrics. So a lot of, they're able to kind of bait and switch that. But polyester is your best go-to fabric. I mean, we've been using it for decades, and I've seen fabrics that they might be wound up. When you first take them out as a dealer or an installer, you're taking the shade out of the tube, and just based on the fact that it's wrapped up, you get creases in that fabric. I've seen in 90-degree temperatures, we hang the shade, drop it in a rail, and like in 20 minutes, it's like perfect shade. I mean,
works wonders.
it's an excellent fabric. Remember, anything that we put in the shades, I was having to deal with in the field. So I fixed everything to make my job easier.
Yeah.
Add longevity to the shades, be able to offer a lifetime warranty. Of course, we're always looking at new fabrics, but the fabric we have right now from this manufacturer is just phenomenal.
It is.
We've gotten just great feedback from the dealers and homeowners. We haven't had any issues. We're not doing fabric replacements, So yeah, good question. There is a big difference between those two.
All right, folks. Well, I have taken up enough of your time this morning. I can't thank you enough for joining us. If you have any questions, highly encourage you to reach out to your sales rep. If you don't know who your sales rep is, email textonmarketing@texton.com, and I can make sure that you are connected with them appropriately. As I mentioned, this is being recorded. So the cool thing is that we'll post this to our YouTube channel in a day or so, and you'll be able to review what was said, and have it as a resource. So any questions, reach out to your sales rep and or email textonmarketing@texton.com, and we will see you guys next month for a big kind of preview on what we're doing for IWCE and some really kind of groundbreaking motorization announcements, and also for color. So see you guys then. All right, guys.
Thanks,
Thanks.
y'all. Have a great day.